Hey there everybody, Eric from outerlimitless coming at you today with another video. So for me, as somebody who's reviewed a bunch of knives, one of the comparisons that I've always wanted to do is the ESEE6 versus the Becker BK7. So for me, there's a number of knives that when you put them side by side, you wonder which one's going to perform better and perform better for you. But at this point, I have not had a good opportunity to do the comparison between the ESEE6 and the Becker BK7. Now at this point, I have developed the TFK T17, and I'm really curious. I built the T17 in an effort to basically compete, if not outperform, both the Becker BK7 and the ESEE6. So in today's video, we're going to take a look at all three of these knives, put them up to the test to see which one performs better. Now at this point, I have not yet done any of the testing on these knives, and I have a lot to do. So if you're interested in checking out the results of this test, do me a favor, stay tuned. Now I generally like to use my knives of this size class to process wood for a fire, and that for the most part is what I'm going to do today. Now, these blades are all in relatively, I'd say, the same condition. They do not have a perfect edge. They've all been used, so definitely not brand new. In fact, my TFK T17 has had quite a bit of use so far. The ESEE6 has, I can't even tell you how many hours of use on it, and the BK7, pretty substantial use as well. Now, all three edges have been stropped just to kind of give them a little bit of a polished edge, so there should be no tarnish, no rust, or anything like that. So all three of these starting in pretty much the same exact condition. So getting into some of the field use here with the BK7, you will notice that this does have aftermarket micarta handle scales. So it is not exactly the factory model. Obviously the factory model has the plastic Grivery style handles, but this does have micarta for this test. And the first thing we're going to do is a little bit of light limbing. So here I have a Christmas tree. We're going to use all three blades, kind of limb this thing up to see which is more comfortable in the hand and performs overall better. Now as we get into this, really clean, nice clean cuts. When you use the proper technique, pretty much just one little snap cut cuts these off. Now I'm going to switch real quick to the ESEE6 and continue to do the work. The key being the bottom of the tree has thicker branches. Now I need to continue to work my way down the tree in order to buy me the room to swing my hand, so I can't do all the work with one blade and then change. I want to have kind of an even test. So now as I get into it, I'm going to switch to the ESEE6. Now again, with the ESEE6, good clean cuts. This feels just a little bit more front weighted than the BK7. The main reason being the BK7, even though it's a longer blade, does right now have those micarta handle scales. So it does kind of weight the handle a little bit more than the blade. So on the BK7, a little more handle weighted, a little more overall balanced, and this ESEE6 a little more forward weighted. Both of them performing extremely well. And so now for the TFK T17. So again, the T17, here you'll see a perfect clean cut. That is about the size of a pinky. So nice and clean right through there. Now, the reason why I built this the way I did was to have a little bit more handle. Gives me a little more clearance. Now, I have to say, for this particular test, all three knives performed just about the same. So reasonably comfortable. Now, the BK7 handle, just a little more girthy. The ESEE6 has sort of a slightly different shape to it, a little more blocky. T17 I built for overall comfort, so nice and comfortable to work, but in terms of the overall performance, it's pretty much the same. So now just cleaning this up a little bit. Working my way down with the T17. Making reasonably easy Now generally comfortable, good quick work, works well, good purchase on the blade. So at this point, let's switch it back to the ESEE6. So now that I'm getting just a little bit more aggressive, what I can tell you about the ESEE6, where this kind of swoops down, and even with the lanyard, I find that to get the proper weight, I am trying to reach back here a little bit more. And that's where I end up kind of with my hand falling off the back of the knife to get the leverage that I need. And that's the advantage to the T17. So getting this handle all the way back, getting a good quality grip, so when I'm doing my chopping tasks, I actually have a full grip of handle. And you can see the difference there as you look. Generally speaking, almost the same overall length in the knife, the T17 being just a touch longer, but definitely the shape of the handle in this case lends itself a little bit better to those chopping tasks. And now for the BK7. So the overall grip on the BK7 didn't bother me at all, even though I had kind of a, I'd say, modified grip here. Definitely worked well. And what I do definitely need to say, the grind geometry on the BK7 is very hard to beat. So if I had to give it to one of the knives for this particular test, I would have to say I'd give it to the BK7. Followed up with a close second to the TFK T17. Now again, a little bit better in the grip department. Now I do have to say that the blade geometry on the BK7 was just a little bit better for those overall chopping tasks. And third would be the ESEE6. Again, running out of a little bit of handle real estate, that sort of blockiness, and the overall weight of the blade was performing well, but the handle just didn't quite do it, at least not as nice as the other options. So now chopping into a 2x4, I'm going to use the ESEE6 on a 10 chop test. And now, the BK7. And finally, the TFK T17. So I did my best to kind of try to attack this the same way each time. Now, to be fair, I'm going to do this test more than once, but for the first results, here you see the ESEE6, the BK7, and the TFK T17. So when you really take a look at all three, the TFK T17 doing some real good work here to this 2x4. Now that is part of the reason why I built the knife and designed it the way that I did. I wanted that good overall geometry, the capable performance on not only some finer tasks, but those heavier chopping tasks. Now, I did get some really good blade depth and penetration on the Becker BK7, and the ESEE6 just not quite as long, not quite as heavy, and was not able to do quite the same work. But let's flip this over and try that test a second time. So first, the ESEE6. Just chipping away all the loose stuff, cleaning that cut up. So that was the ESEE6. Now the BK7. So a little bit of cracking on some of these pieces. I'm only pulling out what's loose. And I'll count that. There you go. And now the TFK T17. Again, only picking out what's loose, and that's about it. So you'll notice on all three of these that I tried to give it the same overall width of a cut, tried to be as fair as I could. Now you can see on the edge some of these clean cuts. That is a single swipe. So there you have the ESEE6, here the BK7, and here the T17. Now overall, you'll notice that these seem to be reasonably about the same overall, but again, a little more performance out of the BK7 and T17. So the ESEE6 not quite as powerful. Now looking at it here, I feel as though both the BK7 and T17 performed fairly similar, maybe just a little bit more in depth on the BK7, but again the back side's not cut out quite as much and not quite as much depth, but the back is chopped out just a little bit more. So very similar on both of them, similar performance. So now just a third and final chop test between the BK7 and the T17. Let's get some fresh wood here and see which one takes the cake. Good initial bite, that's 1, 2, 3. Trying to be kind of tactical with my cuts. 4, 5. Wow. Now to be fair, I did go just a little bit wider this time. And I think that was 10, but I got blasted right in the face with a chunk and kind of got a little bit distracted for a second. So I think that was 10. And so now the T17. Well, that didn't work. So now I got to move this over a little bit, so let's get back at it. The T17. All right, So keeping in mind that this blew out on me with the T17, here you will see basically the BK7 damage. So a good overall chunk of that 2x4 nicely removed. I mean, good deep penetration, good quality chops, and it's really hard to beat. And looking at the T17 damage, you can see it is not quite as much as the BK7. So very close overall, both of them chopping and performing extremely well. But again, I think I need to give this to the BK7.